All right, here we go. This is the second annual Seventh-day Adventist Day of Disrespect for the celebration of the risen Christ. And how do I know that? Because I went to another Seventh-day Adventist church to see if I can find any Seventh-day Adventists here worshiping the risen Christ on the day that he worshiped, which happened to be Sunday. So this year I visited a Seventh-day Adventist church in Garden Grove, California, which you can see right here. So here's the church at Garden Grove. It's called O.C. Grace, by the way, which you're going to see on a sign here in a minute. So watch this short 1 minute and 19-second clip where I was filmed standing in front of the sign for the church, and as you can hear, this was quite a visit. So here we are again at the second annual Seventh-day Adventist dishonoring the resurrection of Christ. I just got to share with you guys right now, and you can see from some other footage, who is here honoring Christ. It's a Christian church. But we know on this channel, the average Christian community doesn't get it. I just met the pastor of this Christian church, who actually probably doesn't like what I'm doing right now, because he thinks there's two. This is what he just told me. Had this conversation less than 5 minutes ago. He said there's two Seventh-day Adventists. He goes, oh no, there's the Ellen White Seventh-day Adventist, and then there's the Seventh-day Adventists that are blind. And I just told him, no, they all have to believe in the 28 beliefs. He's like, no, there's Seventh-day Adventists that are blind, Seventh-day Adventists that are Ellen White, and we have to agree to disagree. Here is a Christian pastor, doesn't get it. Anyway, this is what's going on, I'm sure, at churches all around this nation today, as Seventh-day Adventists rent their churches out to those that are going to get the mark of the beast. So, again, I looked around, didn't see a single Seventh-day Adventist worshiping the risen Christ. But by the way, I did leave a few tracts in the building there for Seventh-day Adventists to pick up. So I'm going to end this second annual video right here. Thanks. Not only did I find not a single Seventh-day Adventist at their church to worship the risen Christ on the day that he rose from the dead, I got a little something else that I didn't expect. I met Christian opposition at this church, as you heard in the video clip. I'm going to tell you a little more about what happened with that. So this church rents the building on Sundays and Wednesdays, and I think some other night from the Seventh-day Adventist church. The church renting it, by the way, is called Calvary Chapel Living Water of Garden Grove. And here is a picture that says it all. Look at this picture. Here it is, the Garden Grove, Seventh-day Adventist, Calvary, look at all these words, all on the same slide. Isn't this just great? So before I attended this Seventh-day Adventist church and went there, as you saw in the clip, I actually called the church about 4 or 5 days. I looked them up online. I found out there was a church, by the way. Then I looked them up online, and I never really found a website. I think it was Yelp or something like that, but I found their phone number, called them. I talked to the soundboard technician. I have no idea who I was going to talk to. I was going to let them know who I am, why I'm going to be there. I'm not there for them, to be critical of them, etc. I'm here for, my second video. I told them I was in the church in Orange, California last year. I'm going to Garden Grove this year. Now, and the guy that I ended up talking to, like I said, the sound tech that runs the board there, and he was just really curious. And he and I talked for about 30 or 40 minutes on the phone. We talked about what Seventh-day Adventists believe, what they deny, and just agreed, and talked more and more. And he wanted to meet me on Sunday. He says, you've got to come in, come upstairs to the soundboard where I'm at, and he's running it. And he was there. I went there and saw him and met him. And by the time I showed up, because I told him I would show up when my church service ended, I would be there for his, which was going to end about the same time. And theirs went a little longer than mine. We got there right at the end of their service. So we met, and at the soundboard, he goes, you've got to go meet our pastor, Johnny Trevino. And this is where it all went wrong. So he brought me downstairs, see the pastor. I told the pastor why I'm here to make a video, because the SDAs refuse to do any kind of worship on Sunday. They will not celebrate the resurrection of Christ on the day that he rose from the dead. And then I mentioned to the pastor, I said, and by the way, the Seventh-day Adventist Church believes that because you're here worshiping right now, you're worshiping on Sunday, that the mark of the beast is reserved for you. That's where it went south or bad. He did not like that comment. He said, no, 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 no. He says, there are Seventh-day Adventists who follow Ellen White, and then there are Seventh-day Adventists who are just fine. He goes, you see, they had a split. And I'm like, what? I said, no, there was no split. I go, there is no distinction. So my tactic at that point, I could see this wasn't going to go well, was to start coming at him from a position of authority and knowledge and start kind of bringing in some books, quoting something. So I said, you know, they have this book called the 28 Beliefs. They have to believe the 28 beliefs. It was clear for me when I said that. It was like he had no idea what I just said at all. And again, and then he goes, well, you know, they were here yesterday worshiping. And I said, yeah, but Christ didn't rise from the dead on a Saturday. Again, he stated, he just reverted right back to his position. Well, there are Seventh-day Adventists who are fine, and there are Seventh-day Adventists who follow Ellen White. And I was left with the impression, though he didn't say it, but I was left with the impression of he thinks he's at a Seventh-day Adventist church who's the Just Fine branch, and then there are the Ellen White worshipers. So he said that to me like twice, then he just turned his back on me and just started talking to someone else, just completely broke contact. So here is a church led by a pastor who liked to act as though he had this knowledge, right, of the Seventh-day Adventist split, which, as we all know, didn't happen. Yes, we know there are Seventh-day Adventists with different beliefs within Adventism, but this split that he was talking about, sorry, doesn't exist. So, I just, as I thought about this, and I came home, this has only been about 2 hours ago now. I'm left, and I go, if this is the level of discernment that is being led, this pastor is leading this church, I go, this church is in trouble. That's all I got to say. Yes, I believe there are true Christians there worshiping the risen Christ on the right day, Sunday, because that's the day he rose from the dead. But yet their pastor, I would say not good. For months. And this made me start this now. For months I've been planning something called the Wall of Shame. I've actually got 2 other things in work right now that may or may not turn out to be members of the Wall of Shame. But the Wall of Shame is going to feature Christian authors, publishers, scholars, pastors, etc., who, when confronted by their affinity and support for Adventism, when confronted by the facts, who refuse to withdraw their support of Adventism, they earn a place on the Wall of Shame. So let me say this here and now. Pastor Johnny Trevino of the Calvary Chapel Living Water Church in Garden Grove, California, you are hereby my first inductee of the Wall of Shame, and here you go. There's Calvary Chapel Living Water. This was a series of podcasts they produced, and there's the actual pastor himself. So let me just say this in summary here. Not a single Seventh-day Adventist could be found at this church worshiping the risen Savior on the day that he actually rose from the dead. There were Christians actually celebrating the risen Savior at this church, there to worship him, and I saw them when I was there. However, Pastor Johnny Trevino, Calvary Chapel, not a good pastor, and I fear for this church, because if that's the level of discernment coming from the leadership of this church, I can just imagine where else the discernment is going awry. So this was the 2nd year. I'm going to do this again a 3rd year, and I'll be thinking about which Seventh-day Adventist church I'm going to find. I'm going to be that, show up at that 3rd church and look for the Seventh-day Adventist who's actually there worshiping the risen Christ on the day that he rose from the dead, and let's see what happens next year.